Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Game Reviews. And tonight, we're going to talk about a game with a boy and his dog, Miasma Chronicles. Miasma Chronicles is a heartwarming tale about a boy and his dog and a girl. No, I'm just kidding. It's about a guy and his robot and a girl. Basically, this game was released, developed by the Bearded Ladies, published by 505 Games, came out on Xbox Series X, X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC on May 23rd, 2023. It is a single-player tactical role-playing game. Has a little bit of some RPG elements with some skills and stuff like that, but mostly it's just a tactical game. We have to combat the miasma in a post-apocalyptic world. So let's kind of get to it and see what everybody thinks of this tactical role-playing stealth game. Well, I guess it doesn't be stealth if you don't want it to be stealth, but it can be. Let's start with Shane. Shane, what'd you think of Miasma Chronicles?
I enjoyed it thoroughly at the beginning, and then I got a little bit bored with it. That's probably me thing, because this is definitely more of a you two guys, genre. But I did really enjoy it. It did kind of bore me out there for a bit at the end. But overall, I would say if you're a remote fan, check it out. I enjoyed the characters. Definitely the characters are probably one of my favorite things about it. I played on the Series X. So my experience is probably a little bit different than Pat, who played on the PC. The controls worked fantastic on the Series X. I mean, everything worked just as you needed them to. No issues whatsoever with it. Gameplay rolled real well. Graphics were fine. I ran into one glitch, but it was like 15 seconds of just something trying to load in, and it just was like a real pain in the butt. But that was it. Never happened again. So, that worked fine. Characters are, like I said, are definitely my favorite part. The robot Pat was referring to is pretty goddamn funny. I really enjoyed the banter back and forth at the beginning, and that's when I knew it was probably a good story-driven game, just by the banter that they had with the characters. I really liked it. The first battle they get you into, and they teach you about the mechanics. The way they kind of chit-chatted back and forth there, I really liked. I thought it was funny. That's how I knew it was going to be an enjoyable game. You get a cornhole, some Battletoad mutant things, so that was fun. I like the enemy designs. I thought they were really cool. The very first ones you run into, I won't give anything away, but the very first ones you went into are some toad mutant things, and they're awesome. I love the character design on them, and they don't speak. It's just so I enjoyed it. The game is good if you like this genre. That's not my biggest favorite genre, but I enjoyed it enough, so take that with a grain of salt. But Nick, on the other hand, he is big into these, just like Pat, and he also reviewed on the Series X. So, Nick, what do you think?
The king is back. That's right. Elvis is resurrected. Elvis is the name of the protagonist in this game, which is an odd name for a character in a game, but the game does explain why his name is Elvis at a certain point, but I won't spoil that. You'll just have to play the game and figure out why. But this game is a lot of fun. It's a tactical strategy game. It was made by the same developers that made Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden, I think is it? Road to Glory, Road to Eden, whatever it was called, where you play as the duck and the pig and stuff. That came out to Game Pass a few years ago. These are the same company. They made it. That was a tactical strategy back then, which was a good game. I didn't play as much of it as I did this one. I actually beat Miasma Chronicles. And Miasma Chronicles is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the kind of futuristic. It's set in America in the future, and some point in the future, where the world is pretty much destroying itself, right? Because we've advanced technology too far. And that's pretty much the premise. But you kind of learn about what's going on in the world, and Elvis and his robot digs and just the adventure. They're the dynamic duo basically as you go through this adventure. Got to keep Tiger strong. And so this game is a lot of fun. If you like tactical strategy games, I mean, pretty much everything's here for your typical tactical strategy. You have cover and stats on like certain percentages for hits and crits, and certain grenades are going to do damage or take off armor depending on what type of grenade it is. You got acid grenades and napalm grenades and regular grenades and all sorts of different stuff that you can utilize, and you can be sneaky too, which is nice. And the sneaking mechanics work really well in this game. You can take out enemies using the sneaking mechanics as well. So, if you have a group of enemies there, you can go in and with silenced weapons, which you don't run across very many silent weapons. But you can go in there and you can pick off some enemies here and there to kind of lower the numbers before you stir the bee's nest, and start taking everything out. That way you don't have to fight, 10 enemies. Now you just got to fight 5 or something like that if you can take them all out. You can actually even, if you need to get through an area and there's enemies there, you can actually, in most cases, not in every case, but in most cases, sneak by them completely if you wanted to. But you want to, your squad levels up and you have skill points that you assign to your characters, and you can assign different armor or weapons, and then customize those weapons with different scopes and different attachments to those. And then you have the miasma that you'll be able to harness and use as well, which is a cool aspect of the game. It's a lot of fun using those. It gives it another layer to the combat because you get some different combat abilities once you start opening that stuff up to be able to use in combat. And you can unlock different ones and kind of switch them in and out and things like that, and you can modify or upgrade them in a sense as well, so they do certain things or allow you to have certain perks, right, when you use those abilities. So it's a lot of fun. Again, it's just a tactical strategy game. The thing is pretty much everything is voice dialogued. So I mean, I don't think there was anything that came across that wasn't, besides like reading the codexes and stuff. But some of the codexes are even voiced. If you go in there and hit the button, you can actually listen to them talk about what's on the codex. There's some puzzle solving if you want to get into some areas that you can't get into. Sometimes you have to find a key card, or you need to know how to unlock a keypad. And, one of the codexes will kind of explain how to figure out how to unlock the keypad. Some of them are difficult. Some of them you're like, I don't understand what this is trying to tell me, but it's okay if you're like me. And I looked some up on the internet just to figure it out, because I'm like sitting there racking my brain trying to figure out what the hell the code is. And I'm like, screw it. What is it? But just to get into a locker or something like that. But overall, it's a lot of fun. Like Shane said, I did play it on the Series X, and it played really well with the controller. Most of these tactical strategy games usually play better with keyboard and mouse, but this game, they did a really good job of using a controller with it. It worked really well. I didn't have any problems using a controller with it. And the only issues I had is there are some times where the frame rate will drop pretty heavily on the Series X, at least. That will probably be patched out and bugged out at some point. There's also a couple of times, really one big one that I ran into where I had to reload my game. And it's where I told the robot, there are some things that you will find that only certain party members can interact with. For example, the robot can break down walls. Well, I told the robot to break down the wall, and the robot got stuck in between the wall and a piece of geometry and could not get out. And the game bugged out to where I couldn't do anything. Like, it was basically stuck in the action of trying to bust that out. So I could move my characters around besides the robot, but I couldn't interact with anything. I couldn't hide. I couldn't do nothing. I could just walk around. So I had to reload my game. But that was the only time. There are certain times where some of the pathfinding for your companions will get in the way, where you're trying to get through a door and you can't walk through characters. So you're like move, and they won't. They're just standing there. So you have to like kind of bring them further into the room. But you can swap between characters. So if you wanted to swap over to them and kind of move them out of the way or something, you could do that as well. So there are ways around it. But the one issue I ran into, it didn't matter, with the robot getting stuck in the wall, it didn't matter who I swapped to, it just would not work. But luckily, this game has a nice autosave mechanic where you can save your game, you can load it, and you can also load the latest. Load latest is usually a save like right before a fight happens, before you even engage in the fight. So it's like right before that point. So if you engage and you're like, oh, I screwed up, maybe I needed to pick off some more people, or maybe I don't want to engage with this, more than likely the load last saved it right before you even engaged at all with that group, which is really nice. So it usually saves it like right before you do something stupid. It seemed like to me. The game knew it. It was maybe using some of that AI technology that that everybody's using nowadays, but for some reason it knew I was going to do something stupid and saved it right before then, which allowed me just to load that right at that point. I didn't have to load my like last save or something like that, which is really nice. So the autosave function works really well in this game. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun game. So yeah, I would recommend it. What about you, Pat? What do you think?
Yep, I kind of agree with you on all those points. This game, it has the same charms as the Mutant Year Zero game, and it's DLC, and kind of reminds me of that a lot. The art style is kind of similar. Not that game wasn't as dark and gritty as this one appears to be, but it was pretty good. And this one is the same, I think. The skill trees are different and things like that, and every person seems to have their own unique sections in the skill tree. So there's like four different trees within the main tree that you can go into and spend points in and things like that. And so, you can kind of make your characters the way you want, but I kind of left them towards the path they were on. You get your miasma guy, made sure early on to focus on his miasma abilities, and Diggs, I made him kind of like a runner gunner, and just kind of stuck with that concept with him. I'm like, what better to be your foot soldier or your front runner than a giant armored robot, right? So I made him that. And then, but yeah, I do like the stealth part of it. It is a little time consuming though. It did kind of weigh a little bit after a while. I remember doing one mission where there's just so many enemies, and they group enemies into like squads. So if you aggro one squad in a zone, it doesn't mean the entire zone comes after you, right? Which is kind of nice. But some of the squads are rather large. But so you can aggro a squad, and there may be 10 guys in that squad, and there's 20 more guys out in the field. They don't come running. So it's kind of nice in that aspect. But it also means that you can take those smaller squads and dwindle their numbers down to where there's like 2 or 3 of them, and then engage them. And I found myself doing that a lot. In the early game, I think it helps a lot more than maybe towards the later game, because, man, you are just pretty weak in the early game. And there's times where you're getting involved with 10 enemies, and you're like, there's no way I could survive this. They have me surrounded. Everybody's taking damage from 3 enemies at a time, even though they're behind cover. And there's multiple types of cover, right? There's like half cover, tall cover, full cover, standard type of tactical strategy type games, And so you just have to understand the concepts and flanking and things like that, because flanking is a big part of this game. It gives you bonus critical damage, and heist gives you advantage, and sometimes can give you critical percentage bonus points on attacking the target. And there's also destructible items like exploding barrels. What kind of tactical shooter game would be complete without exploding barrels? So where you can cream a whole group of guys with just one item, then grenades and things like that. And so I played on the computer. I don't think it's going to take a lot for me to want to play a tactical RPG game on the console. I just like my mouse and keyboard. I like having the feel of control, and I don't like having to go press multiple buttons to get into a menu or do something like that. Because I don't know, and maybe I check it out on Xbox to see what it's like. But, getting into your inventory is just pushing I. And then I'm like, okay, I've got my inventory, and just scroll through and click with my mouse instead of having to do other things. And then pulling up my character sheet C, I can get to direct like map as M, and I don't have to go menu to get to map. I just hit M and my map pops up, and things like that. Or I, and it goes right into my inventory, or C goes directly into my character creation and things like that. I enjoy those quality of life things. And then I just think the abilities, and it may be different. I don't know, like, what does it take to go into ambush mode? Like on the PC, it's just push F and you ambush. and then you do your abilities, and the abilities are mapped to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I push that. So I know every time I ambush, especially with my sniper, it's F2, F and number 2, and then she shoots the guy. So, it makes it a little bit quicker when you're mowing down an army of 20 Battletoads, So, outside of that, like I said, the stealth did get a little bit annoying at times because I spent a lot of time sometimes just going through going, can I get that guy? Can I get that guy? Does he stay? Is he part of a pack? What is he? And then, there's distracting mechanisms. Like you can throw a glass bottle and peel one of the guys off, but glass bottles are expensive and rare in the game. They're not very prevalent, so you use them wisely or you just use them up, and I have a very bad, and I'm trying not to at this game. I have a very bad habit of just hoarding everything and be like, no, I might need that later. And then I end up in the game and I've got like a stack of 20 of everything. And I'm like, well, crap, I should have used those more often. It would have made it easier. So I'm trying to push myself not to store any of those things. And I'm using my grenades and I'm using my glass bottles and things like that. So, but I do like that you can, if you got multiple characters that can do stealth, it's really nice to be able just to, even if it takes 4 characters to kill one guy, as long as he dies before the end of your turn, it basically puts you in non-combat because you killed, especially if nobody else saw you kill that guy, right? You have to do him stealthily. You can't just shoot somebody out in the open and everybody sees him and they just forget they saw this guy die. So, but yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this game. And it's really a fun game. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I did not beat it, I am not like Nick. I have not beaten it like Nick. So, but yeah, like I said, this game is just like Mutant Year Zero. If you like that game, I think you'll like this one. But the whole saving thing, like I save all the time. This is one of those games that causes me to save scum all the time. I'm a save scummer in games like this. I save, and I'm like, do I really want to try it this way? Let me try it another way, and I'll keep doing that. And I've only ran across one puzzle that I really had to Google, and it was the puzzle with the Gator Zone freaking keypad. I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to tell what this passcode is by listening to this recording? So I had to look it up. And then once I looked it up and they said how you figured it out, I'm like, how did they know this? It wasn't anywhere in the thing. So I'm like, how'd you know to look at the, I don't want to give anything away, but how'd you know to look at this thing that tells you the code? And I'm like, that's nowhere in any of the codecs or anything I picked up. But overall, fun game. Lots of cool things to do. There's side quests out the wazoo too. Unfortunately, they have you backtracking a little bit, but the game so far has been fun with that. And they throw a lot of high level enemies in the regular zone, so you have to be careful where you go and pay attention, or else you'll stumble into a nest of guys that are 5-10 levels higher than you. So, but you suck up miasma with your glove, and every time you do one of those little miasma vortexes, you get stronger and new abilities for your gloves. So, I thoroughly enjoy it. Makes it a little bit different type of game.
Yeah, gotta watch. Be careful with that miasma. Get you.
Yeah. Mother miasma is not kind.
No, my miasma's acting up. Yeah, it does make you backtrack. The nice thing is that you can basically fast travel to any place that you've visited already. So you just go to the map screen, you can fast travel to any of those, which is really nice. So if you do need to go back, and if you do have a side quest and you're like, okay, I need to fast travel to this location, you can make that side quest active, and when you go to the map, it will show you the location, the area that you need to fast travel to. Basically, it's going to be somewhere in that area, but okay, the mission's there, so I'm going to fast travel there, and it's somewhere in this area. So that's nice. Makes it a little bit easier.
Yep.
Yeah. It's got a variety of enemies. Early on, you get to fight the Battletoads and the humans, and then eventually some robots and some other things. But, it's got a plethora of different enemy types, and you just have to learn them and learn their mechanics. And, early on, like I said, I saved scum a lot because early on I died. And I'm like, God, it can be a little brutal on you, So you learn what enemies can do what they're vulnerable to, and what's the best way to approach them sometimes. So sometimes you may need to funnel them into an explodey barrel, and you're like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get them all together here, and I'm going to blow them up, as long as I'm not within the blast radius. So, but yeah, so far the game's been pretty fun. Lots of little things to look at and try to figure out. There's all kinds of like locked rooms or hidden treasures in every zone and weapons and stuff like that. The only downfall to this game, in my opinion, is that the currency is really slow to come. Like I barely have any money to buy stuff, and the miasma, until you get further along in the game and get enough points, doesn't recharge on its own. It never recharges on its own. You always have to either pump power cells into it or kill enemies once you get the abilities where kill enemies let you absorb miasma. And so that annoyed me to no end, that I'm always constantly popping power cells, to rebuild that. Because I mean, those are powerful abilities. Like, they can take out a group of enemies or do a lot of damage to a group of enemies or move enemies around the board and stuff like that. So that's one of the main abilities. That's one of the main things that makes it fun, but it's also one of the more infuriating things when you're like, I just don't have enough miasma and I don't want to waste a backpack pull to pull out power, and then do this. Because I mean, basically you have 2 action points. That's it. And you could do a couple different things. You can move a certain distance and then still be able to shoot, or move your entire distance and use up both your action points. Or you can go into a backpack and that uses an action point. But luckily, weapon swapping in this game does not use an action point. So you can swap weapons, without doing that. And the story's okay. It's somewhat interesting story, but, post-apocalyptic world, USA. Funny that a bunch of Swedish people are doing a game set in the southern US, with a bunch of southern tribes and stuff like that. But it's a fun game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shane.
No, you go ahead. No, you sir.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, sweet tea in the South. Yeah, no, that's yeah, it's southern United States. It's probably in Louisiana, since we got the Gator Zone, right? Somewhere around.
I think they're talking about Kentucky, right? Isn't that Kentucky?
Oh yeah, because it's Kentucky Zone. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the first area, is the little Kentucky area.
Yeah, it's the south of the north.
South of the north.
Wonder if they're going to find Colonel Sanders for some Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I did hear banjos.
Yeah, and this game is $50.
Yeah,
which is there's enough there that I think $50 is fine. The only thing that's not necessarily bad, but it just kind of sucks about this game is there's no replayability. Once you've beaten the game, there's really no point in going back through it unless you want to play on a harder difficulty or something like that, right? Otherwise, if you've done everything, side quests and everything you wanted to do in it, there's really, you're just going to get the same story again, pretty much the same stuff. So there's really no point in going back into the world for any other reason. There's no multiplayer options. There's no, continuing to level. There is a level cap in the game, so more than likely you'll probably end up hitting that by the time you finish the game. So really you have no point in going. But if $50, and I would say depending on how much time you take and stuff like that, what was it like? Beeline the story was like 10, 12 hours, something like that. I
think they said like 12 to 15. Yeah, to beeline the story.
So probably like 20 hours for side quests and storyline and stuff like that. If you want to do everything in the game, which I think is probably about as much time as it took me to complete it. But I had a lot of fun playing it and I enjoyed it a lot. So it was definitely worth the $50 because I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I did everything in there that the game had to offer. So I enjoyed it a lot. If I didn't enjoy it, or, if it kind of lacked side quests, or, it was a really short game, then I would say $50 is not quite, what it should be. But this game, I think, had enough in there. They're not trying to microtransaction you or anything. It's a complete game. What we want, there's a beginning and an end, and it's just a fun game. So, no microtransactions, no like, will this game have DLC? Probably. But, it didn't feel like to me like there was anything cut from the game that was then going to be used for DLC later. It sounds like if they are going to do DLC, they're going to do like a continuation, not necessarily a continuation of the story or anything like that, but just maybe like other things going on, or, maybe setting the game up for a sequel or something like that, in the DLC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it feels that way.
I find it really awesome that somebody was able to make a complete game, 20 hours with all the stuff, without shoving in loot boxes, without shoving in DLC, without shoving in microtransactions. And they did it at $50 price tag. Makes me think all these other developers are full of shit with their $70 price tag.
With physical copies. You can buy Miasma Chronicles with physical copies too.
You mean you can do such a thing? Oh my God. Somebody tell everybody else.
And this game's not bad in the graphics department. I mean, it's not like the best looking game, but it's a nice looking game. So it's like, yeah, we talked about Alan Wake 2 and all these other games that have come out and just been piss poor. And it's like these indie companies, such as this company here, which I would consider more on the indie side of things. I'm not sure how big their group is, but I think this is maybe only the second game, at least the second game I only know of, besides Mutant Year Zero. Third game, okay? And, Shane's right. To be able to bring out a game, even have it come out to where you can buy it in stores, a full-fledged game, doesn't seem to be anything missing or anything they've taken out of it from start to finish. Everything's voice acted, all that stuff. Like, they put a lot into this, and it's a complete package, and they didn't have to bullshit the consumer to buy it.
Yep. Kind of chaps my ass when you think about it.
Yeah. So yeah, these guys made like we said, the mutant this game, the mutant I hate the naming of the game because it's just a bad name. It's hard to remember the name. I just remember, the Mutant Year Zero. Road to Eden was the game, and they came out with like a Seed of Evil expansion, and then they came out with another tactical game called like Corruption 2029, and then this one. So they're all tactical RPGs. So that's what they make. That's their bread and butter, and they're doing pretty good at it. So I've enjoyed what they put out so far. I actually did not play Corruption 2029. I just remember seeing it a couple of years ago. Maybe it's been longer than that. Maybe 3. I don't know. But yeah, so good game. You guys got anything else on this one before we try to get the hell out of Miasma?
Yeah, just real quick. So their DLC for Mutant Year Zero was $15.
Yeah, $14.99.
That's a reasonable price for another chunk of a complete game. So I think that's the way business should be ran in the video game market. I just wanted to put that out there because
how long did you play the DLC, Pat? How long did it take to get through the DLC? Was it pretty considerable?
Probably about 10 hours.
For 15
10 hours,
$15.
That's worth it, I think.
Yeah,
especially if you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm like a huge explorer. I like go over every inch of the maps and look in all the little corners for all the collectible, or not collectibles, but just all kind of stuff. I don't usually do the collectibles, but I look for all the extra weapons and armor and all kinds of crap you can get like that. So it usually takes me a little longer than the average person, but so it took me probably 10 to 12, but I think you can do it all in 10, all of it in 10. If you just beeline the extra content, it's probably 6 hours.
Still $15, it's worth it.
Yeah, to me it is. That's what we're used to, right? That was the that's a DLC. It's not quite expansion territory. It's DLC territory, and it's an understandable DLC. Because I didn't think that it was something that was ripped out of the game. It was just extra. So another storyline. Cool. Well, if you like tactical strategy games, this game is probably right up your alley. It's futuristic sci-fi, it's got different types of guns, different types of weapons, and there's some outfits, no real armor, but then there's like different types of grenades, and there's different power-ups you can put on your character, like increased armor, increased kilowatts generated for your miasma abilities, et cetera, et cetera. So, let us know if that's what you like to play. If so, I checked this one out at $50. It's a pretty good deal if you like these type of games. It'll keep you busy for hours, 20 hours plus, 15 to 20, depending on if you just like to run to the end. And it's got 4 different difficulties. I think it's 4 levels of difficulty. And you can also control some of the other types of combat things, such as are percentages always the same based off of cover, or is there other factors, make it even more tactical where no matter what, there's never 100% chance of hit, right? You could add in those different combat modifiers as part of that. So let us know what you think. Give it a try if that's your type of game. And as always, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope to catch you in the next one.
See ya.